Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of AAC in the Cloud. Our presenters today will be Sharon Redmon and Mike Hipple, and we will turn the time over to them for their presentation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is my last presentation of this amazing conference. I hope you've had a great time. I certainly have. I'm here today with my good friend and colleague, Mike Hipple, and we're here to talk about writing as a lifetime journey and how one AAC user became a writer, and that's Mike. Before we start, and sorry we were running a little late, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, and I'm sure you can see this little black box that's floating down on the left-hand side of the screen. For some reason, which we couldn't figure out, it's not showing up for everybody that you can see our face, but I need to be able to have that open, Mike and I, so that I can see him while we're having this talk and communicating back and forth. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that that's out of your way. So don't be worried if you see it floating around, because it's going to end up doing that. We're just gonna work with it. We're gonna make it work. So welcome again. We're super excited to have you here, and let's get to it. So Mike, go ahead. Who are you?
My name is Mike Hipple. I am living in Wisconsin, which is a beautiful state to live in. I have been using AAC for 21 years. I went through the Appleton Area School District 1998 to 2013. I am a member of the following organizations: United States Society and the International Society of AAC, the Council of Exceptional Children, and the Autism Society of Wisconsin. You can read more about the societies that I am in here, and I hope you will consider joining some yourself. I founded Wisconsin Augmentative Alternative Communication in 2015, and you can read more about the network here. I wrote a children's book about starting school for children with a disability.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. We're going to celebrate you. I have to say, I love Canva. That's what we're using today to do our presentation. So yeah, so Mike and I met back in 2016 at a conference in Wisconsin, and we both had a lot to say and to talk about. So we've been doing some, I don't know, Mike, I think it's about once a year we get together and do a presentation together surrounding concepts and ideas around AAC and have these wonderful conversations. And I just really appreciate Mike as a friend, good friend, and colleague. So I'm Sharon Redmon. I am a special education teacher and assistive technology specialist, and I've been working in the field for over 20 years. I am from Wisconsin originally, and I consider myself a Waddy baby, and now I feel like an adolescent in the Wadern community that Mike and I, along with a few others, Jennifer Schubring as well, and created the Water Network for the Wisconsin area. And so Mike and I have been, like I said earlier, presenting together about once a year. And I always enjoy getting together with Mike and having some really robust conversations. So what are we going to do today? All right, so we're going to be talking about Mike's journey. It has been an interesting one, and one that I hope that you enjoy hearing about. And we're also going to be looking at, as we're talking about writing today and Mike's journey at becoming a writer, we'll touch on some of the developmental writing stages that individuals with complex communication needs typically don't get to, and then some ideas on how we can get to those, how we can do this within across the lifespan. And working with some predictable chart. If you saw, I just did a presentation on predictable chart writing. We won't get too much into that, as showing what that is. So please go and check out that presentation or others that have been done around that topic. Also Alternative Pencil, and which has an access to letters. We're going to be really diving in, though, deep into meaningful classroom and writing activities, and then those activities for young adult or AAC users. And so what brings that agency for our users? So Mike and I always, when we are together presenting, we want to have a common language. I've been using this throughout all my presentations through the conference. So if you've been in one of them, you've seen this. So we believe that everyone can read and write. We believe in pursuing competence, and that is not just the foundation, but what feeds that foundation. We feel that the act of writing is a process, and it's just not the act, and that's meaningful, and that we need to then look at how attributing meaning and modeling writing all have its space within creating writers across all levels of communication, whether that's emergent or context dependent or independent writer or AAC users. And looking for also nurturing and how we nurture that AAC user's journey, right? How do we become that purpose? Because we know writing is just not necessary, but it's essential to AAC users to access their communication and their agency and that control. And I was reminded about that this week, Mike. I hope it's okay that I share this, that Mike's device stopped working this week, and it was very stressful not being able to communicate with myself, but how stressful that was for you, Mike, not to be able to communicate back because that device wasn't working. And so how that agency got taken away, that control over communicating with others was taken away from due to that. So these are our beliefs. This is what, kind of like I said, feeds that tree, feeds that that foundation, and makes everything grow. So here we are. We're going to be talking about Mike today, and this kind of started it was about 3 or 4 months ago. I emailed Mike and asked him if I could talk to him about his writing and his writing journey. And I've been very interested in the research, or kind of lack there is, and out there in the research within writing within the community of AAC users and individuals with complex communication needs and complex bodies. And so I really wanted to hear his journey about this and what that looked like for him. So here were some early questions that I asked him. You know, I asked like when his earliest memory was, what was frustrating, how did he finally learn to become a writer, and why he thought that was just so important. And so what we're going to be starting with when Mike starts is kind of looking through this span of when he first got his first writing, his first AAC device, his first writing in kindergarten. 3, he's an active member of Key Club. He presented a play, or was in a play, which, you know, is near and dear to my heart, because I just did a play with my students of The Wizard of Oz. And then, you know, senior skip day, being part of his community, and Mike now. And I have, like I said, known Mike since 2016, and just watching and seeing the growth over his writing has been extraordinary, and it needs to be celebrated. And so we're gonna throw some confetti on that again. Again, I love Canva.
Who remembers starting off the school day with journal time? I do, and that is my earliest writing memories. My 8 had sentences that were already made up, and I just needed to choose a friend or an activity that I wanted or did during the day. This was before I had any AAC system, and it was what everyone else was doing in my kindergarten class. One more writing activity that my kindergarten class did is kindergarten news. Kindergarten news is when the class reports what they did during the day, or school news. The following sentences might be in kindergarten news. Today I played with the name of the child, and we ate grilled cheese for lunch. Again, this was what my class was already doing to make sure that everyone fallen in love with writing. Moving on to first grade to fourth grade writing. In kindergarten, I was writing words, but my teachers and my family wanted more. Can you believe that? They wanted me to write sentences, which it was so hard to do on the first communication device that I had. They didn't have words so people could build their own sentences. People needed to add words, and this device didn't have a spelling page in Word Bank. So if I wanted to say a word that wasn't in the device vocabulary, I was out of luck and needed to find a different word that mean the same thing. That led to a lot of frustration. My mom kept most of my written projects, and that is what we're going to talk through next. Our first written project is a science paper that I did in 6th grade. I want everyone to look at the sentences. Are the sentences grammar right? No way, and that does not matter. What matters is that I wrote something on the topic my classmates did. Next, we have something that I wrote about my dream birthday party in 4th grade. No one would understand this but my family and I. But this is a phenomenal example of someone's early writing. Notice that I wrote only 3 words, and my teacher or my aide printed this and shared with my family. I bet that my parents had this up on the refrigerator for a month to remind me that I am a writer. So school professionals, please send home all of your writer's work and ask them, can I put this up in the classroom? It does matter to the family and most important to the student who did the work. Now it is Sharon's turn.
Thanks, Mike. That was amazing. I really want to point out the assigning meaning and expanding that your parents and your teachers did early on, especially with adding 3 words about what you did this weekend about going to a party. I think that's really important, and putting it up on the refrigerator. I mean, that's where all the great works of writing and art should be in one's family, celebrated on there, and you being celebrated like that definitely showed that writing was important and was valued in your home, and that's amazing. You know, when we talked a few months ago, Mike, one of the questions I asked and I was really curious about was how you learned to write. And one of the things that you told me is that you just had to figure it out yourself, that it was quite frustrating, kind of more of that conventional writing and moving towards conventional writing. And then how you use your icons and how you use spelling and word prediction to compose that writing. And being able to go back and forth so smoothly and seeing how that process has worked for you has really been an honor for me to be able to see, and helps me when I'm thinking about teaching my emergent writers, my emergent AAC communicators, and what that looks like, and making sure that they have access to all of that so that we can focus on the process of writing and expanding, their one word that they bring in, and expanding that and doing writing together. So, and one of the things that we talked about, and I'm very interested in, is this idea of agency or control, and what that brings to a person's heart, and how they feel about themselves as, as a communicator, as a writer, as the work that they do, the work you do in the Wisconsin AAC network, and working with other agencies to bring advocacy and knowledge and training out there around AAC to families throughout Wisconsin. So yeah, I love seeing these early examples, and I'm glad that I'm glad Sue saved them. So thanks, Sue. So here I kind of had some more, just that it was a frustrating experience for Mike. You had talked about that you really didn't know how to do. And now that we know better, we do better, right? We have some tools, we have evidence-based practices that can help us and help teachers, parents, therapists be able to bring writing and understand how important writing is to our AAC users. So some of the things that we feel are really important to kind of look at are these developmental stages of writing. So, you know, our neurotypical peers have gone through these stages. And when you have a complex body and complex communication needs, that ability to hold onto a pencil, to draw, to make meaning, to have those drawings and scribbling and forming those letters, creating random strings of letters, and then invented spelling, and that moves into that conventional spelling and conventional writing. And going through, and when that's interrupted, that becomes hard. We lose a piece of going through those developmental stages. So finding ways for our AAC users, our individuals with complex bodies, to be able to still interact and go through some of these stages so that they can be part of the process of making meaning, that letters make words and words form sentences, and that conveys meaning is so important. So to go through it, to just have the physical nature, that we're not talking about that. We're talking about what it does for the process of writing. And so we really encourage people to look at things like predictable chart writing, to be able to look at ideas within the alternative pencil. You know, Mike and our good friend Kelly Fauner has done some amazing work, as well as so many others, around this idea of alternative pencil and what that means in just providing that access, and not just access to, I mean, we need that, right? We need access to letters. Like Mike said, he didn't have access to letters in his first communication device. So he didn't have a way of being able to write what he wanted, or to even to go through these stages of developmental writing stages. So it is really, with the alternative pencil, I find I end up using the concepts behind it, and utilize those ideas when it comes to providing access to the process of writing, that I think is so vital. Because here's what we know copying is copying. That's not going to do any good for anybody. That is not the process of writing. So that is just copying. And that writing with icons or letters has meaning, and in attributing meaning to what our AAC users and our emergent users, what they did, Mike, with your writing early on, helped you formulate that process and have, I see it as having that agency and that control to be able to bring your ideas. You may not have known how to do that right away, but seeing it in print, I think is super important. So we feel all means all. Everyone can learn how to read and to write, and they deserve that access. So Mike likes meaningful activities. I like meaningful activities. Mike has, starred in a play and having individuals write their own lines. What I talked about, like predictable chart writing, things that you can do within the school day to make those pieces meaningful. So go check out some of the amazing webinars and amazing presentations that have happened during this AAC in the cloud of taking that next step to really, if you're not quite sure yet, go and look and search that out, because there are some amazing presentations from so many people about how to make writing meaningful, how to bring in AAC users and utilize some of these evidence-based practices that we have to create that agency for our students. So Mike has a bunch of other activities, and so he's going to be talking about that. So Mike, what else do you have? What other ideas did we talk about and that you have?
Thanks. We all know that people can start using AAC at any age, but how can we do writing activities with someone who is 15, 25, 45, or 75? Don't worry, I got some interesting and amazing ideas for you all. Remember when I talked about kindergarten news? Maybe you could do TV news or daily social media report. Remember, for this, you want just 1 or 2 word answers to start, because we want to make this as easy and fun as we can. This is the example that I came up with. Every time you see the word adult, it is where they would write something. Today is June 28, 2022. Adult like to watch adult. They think it is funny. Adult played baseball last night. They enjoy being with adults. Today we are doing adult, and it will be a good day. Now this shouldn't take long to do, and it is easy to do. Parents, you can ask the day program or the agency that your adult has to start this to help the AAC communicator or communicators with their language skills. Plus, it will help the other people at the day program. Our next idea is journal time. Anyone and everyone can keep a journal to write down their ideas, hopes, and dreams for the future. Journal is phenomenal for adults who use AAC because they can keep up with their writing skills. I have a journal that I keep ideas for topics for workshops. Our next idea is social media report. What do we all do on social media? We write. You could ask someone to be the social media person for your classroom or your program. Don't tell them they will be working on writing. It is likely that they think that you are the coolest person ever. I call it a win-win.
Yeah. I do too,
Our
Mike.
last idea is start a blog about their life. I had a blog when I was in middle school and high school. It did help me with my writing skills, and it was fun to do. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great, Mike. Thanks for those tips. And we had some really great fun putting those ideas together. And I'm glad that you were able to give a few extras in there. I think that that was amazing, especially seeing that you didn't, have a device for quite a while to be able to put these thoughts down. So I really appreciate the time that you took to be able to do that and to do that writing, right? Because it's essential for you to be able to express what you want, when you want, where you want, and to who you want, and to have that agency. So I really appreciate you sharing your journey with us, Mike. I do want to just take us out of the presentation a little bit and highlight the work that Mike has done with the AAC network. Please go and check that out. He's very active on Facebook, very active in the Wisconsin AAC community. He brought us together, a great group of people for the school network part of it. And so we really owe, and the families in Wisconsin really owe a a big, huge thank you to be sent out to Mike for really putting this together. It's been vital for me. I know when I came back to Wisconsin back in 2016 and not having that network to support me and to support the work, and to be able to network with other AAC therapists and teachers, that was really hard. And it was such a loss not having Wadi there. So having Wadern was great for us to be able to connect with others that are also doing some great work, and then ask the questions. This is tough stuff. We don't always have the right answer, and sometimes we do it wrong, and that's okay. And as long as we are searching for how to do it better and what we can do to improve. So I encourage everyone to go and check out everything about Mike's AAC network and all the writing that he's done and his family has done to make this possible. So I'm going to come back to our presentation. And so I'm going to celebrate you again, Mike. I'm going to do that. And then also, I love this. This was, we had the mic drop. Isn't that great? Yeah. So well done. So we are going to go on to our next. So thank you, everyone. We wanted to make sure that we had a lot of time for questions and answers, so that Mike could participate in that. And we have some resources here, a few resources for you to be able to take a look. And I'm going to stop our share so that we can bring Mike and I just up on the screen. So if anybody has some questions for us. Hey, Mike, well done. I'm glad that you were able to be here and we were able to do this together. I always learn so much from you. So were there any questions that anybody has for either Mike or myself?
Awesome.
I don't know if our I don't know if our
I'm checking the slide. I'm checking the chat room right now, so don't worry, Sharon.
Okay,
if someone
thanks.
posted it in there, I'll sorry, I forgot to unmute there when I was in
That's okay.
So if someone puts it in, give it just a second so people can start typing questions in. Just a minute.
Okay, sounds great. I think while they do that, I'm gonna look and see if I have. We just did.
I have.
Just let's see if I can get you some video.
Story.
I'd love to hear it, Mike. What's your story?
To tell. In.
I'd love to hear
grade.
it.
I was trying. Out. My. First. P. R. C. device. In 5th grade, I was trying out my first PRC device. Capital I. Kept on saying. Ketchup, ketchup, ketchup. Mustard. Four. 2. Weeks. I kept on saying ketchup, 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 mustard for 2 weeks.
I've had many new AAC users who do the same thing. Do you feel like you were exploring?
Now. Some. P. Professional. Professionals. Might. Have. Said. He doesn't. Understand. The. Language. And. We need. To go. L. O. Low. Lower. Now some professionals might accept he doesn't understand the language and we need to go lower.
I agree. I think sometimes that does happen.
There are 3 questions when you're ready.
Okay, thanks.
Just. learning.
Yeah, it's important that you were just starting out, you were just learning, you were exploring your device, and what we said earlier, Mike, right, about having that belief and assuming positive intent, assuming that and presuming that potential is what, and believing that our students can, is really important, so that we could assign some meaning. Maybe you were talking about ketchup, maybe you were just exploring, maybe you wanted to tell them you liked ketchup, you know?
In 5th grade, I was trying out my first PRC device. I kept on saying ketchup, 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 mustard for 2 weeks. Now some professionals might have said he doesn't understand the language and we need to go lower. I was just learning the language.
Just learning where things were and exploring. And I think that that's a really big piece. And I'm glad that you were able to tell us that and express that, because that's huge. It's huge. In my last 2 presentations, talked about how I have a student who had said, we were describing the throne and she kept saying birthday instead of describing the color or the shape or the size. And if we wouldn't have presumed that she knew what she was talking about, if we wouldn't have given her that time and believed in her, we would have just passed her off. But instead, we knew she knew what she was talking about. We believed in her skill. And when we dove a little deeper in asking her about that, we said, all right, you're saying birthday, we're not understanding, but maybe birthday means something special. And she said, yes, maybe birthday means, do you have a chair in your house that you sit on during the birthday? Yes. And is that what throne reminds you of, as a special place to sit? Yes. So special. And she would go to special. She knew where that was. And that was just so powerful. We could have dismissed her. We could have said that we needed to go lower. She doesn't know what we're talking about, or she doesn't understand, but we didn't. We had that belief, and starting there is really important, because that's what just grows and allows our AAC users to grow. Mike, we have a few questions. I'm just going to bring those up. And one of them is, Mike, are there any writing acceleration tools that you use a lot, such as abbreviation expansion or word prediction or others?
Word. Bank is a phenomenal. Tool. And when you are G I give giving a spelling Test. Please. Please. Let them use it. Word bank is a phenomenal tool, and when you are giving a spelling test, please let them use it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Mike. We have one more. Are you able to edit using your writing system? Are you able to edit using your AAC system?
Yes.
And then they go on to ask, and this might be a longer question, but what was your experience like learning to edit your writing? I know you've had like help and tutors in writing, in working on your writing.
Hard.
It was hard. Mm-hmm.
And long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hard and a long process. And I think it is for everyone. So you're not alone, Mike. Editing your work is, you know, I've been teaching a long time, and when I taught gen ed, that was the hardest bit for many of my students. So that is hard for everyone. So, but you know what, that question might be another webinar for us to do together, Mike, of what that looks like in editing, writing, and how you go about actually composing some of your work. So we had one more, and that was, and I think we have enough time. We have a couple minutes left. I'd like to know how to set up AAC to do speech to text for writing journals. One of the things that I do with my students, Mike, and
Do they have a notebook on device? Do they have a notebook on device?
that's exactly what I was going to say, Mike, is that most AAC systems will have a notebook function or an export function to be able to export the message that's created, to be able to then put into, we export into Google Docs, and then my students can add to that to their writing journals. That's how we use it. I'm not sure if they meant it for the program, your AAC device, to that if you were to, when you hit your message bar, that then a speech to text engine would pick that up and then write that into a different device. I'm not sure if that's what they meant. Typically, I know what we do, and Mike as well, is that we use that notebook function, or we export the what was written and typed into the message bar. Right, Mike? Yeah, yeah. So so look for that function, and if you don't know, then you know, contact one of your speech and language pathologists or other person who's knowledgeable in AAC.
Great. Person to follow on Facebook is M R A great person to follow on Facebook is MR Z.
Mr. Z.
And his amazing family and friends. A great person to follow on Facebook is Mr. Z and his amazing family and friends.
Yeah, Mr. Z and his amazing family and friends. Yeah, definitely go check that out. There's quite a few on there, right? Yeah,
He
to
does.
follow.
Journal. Journaling. And we are hoping that he could be a P part of the W workshop F for C T G. A great person to follow on Facebook is Mr. Z and his amazing family and friends. He does journaling and we are hoping that he could be a part of the workshop for CTG.
Yeah, we're looking at putting that together in the fall, aren't we, Mike? Well, Mike, that's it. That's our time is up. And I know you have lots to say. So we're going to have to save it for the next time we do this and we get together when we're in the fall at CTG. So closing the gap. So excited. Thank you everyone for coming and spending the afternoon with Mike and I and learning a little bit about his writing journal and all the things that he has to say and kind of coming up with some fun and creative ideas that you can do at home or in the classroom or in your therapy sessions to encourage and to grow that agency with our AAC users and increase their writing abilities. So thanks, everyone. We appreciate your time. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
We want to thank Sharon and Mike for their time today and this great presentation, and encourage everyone to continue to look at all the options. There's a lot of different presenters and information. This is just some of the great stuff that's out there to help everyone in their journey for AAC. So thank you again to our presenters, and we hope everyone has a wonderful day.
All right. Bye, everyone.